Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
Pleasant good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Maritime Matters. Whether you're listening via radio wave or 97.5 FM, via an internet FM radio app, or via Cable Bahamas channel 951, or even BTC Flow channel 606, we appreciate you and we humbly welcome you to our show. We now encourage you to check out our YouTube page, Maritime Matters Bahamas. Here you can listen into all of our previous shows at your own leisure. So feel free to hit us up on YouTube, Maritime Matters Bahamas. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Tonight, we shall engage discussions on the status of our blue carbon credit implementation. You know the deal. We're a rich country. We got wealth. Unbelievable coming our way. Based on research. I think what Glenn Bain say. That's what research say. And we are going to get to the bottom of some of it before this show is over. Question. How far away is the Bahamas from receiving the first dollar from our blue carbon credits? Another question. How much money should we realistically anticipate receiving on an annual basis? You know, that's a big one. Because research tells us, at least the only research that I am aware of, thus far, and we need to do some more research, eh? Research tells us that that's going to blow us sky high above almost every other nation when it comes to how much money our country receives compared to how many citizens we have in our country. And they got some fancy terms when it comes to accountants and that type of thing. You know, I say captain, I say ship captain. I don't know nothing but those things. They talk about GDP and this and that and the next. But whatever it is, layman term, simply put, as far as I am concerned, based on what I read, this country is poised to get somewhere in the range of 150 billion. I think they say 156 billion. And I don't know, all of a sudden that vanished. And people talking other things like 60 billion and 50 billion over by 2050. No. No, let me know where that come from. Because based on what that study revealed by a whole university, we're looking for over 100 billion. I even ain't got 150, maybe 250 billion. I don't know. But we got the largest seagrass meadows in the entire world. As a matter of fact, we got over 60% in the Caribbean region, which is the largest region in the world for seagrass meadows. And for the entire world, we got about 30% of seagrass meadows. That sequesters far more carbon out of the environment. Like 40 times faster. And stores some 50% more carbon than those forest trees in the Amazon basin and places like that. So we know we got in our jurisdiction. The carbon storage ability to be the wealthiest little nation. You remember Kuwait and Qatar, the US people call them Qatar, and Saudi Arabia and Iran and Iraq and those countries in the Persian Gulf area that are so wealthy from oil. Well, we got something, my dear listener, that is far more valuable than oil. We got seagrass meadows in high abundance when you compare it with other countries of the world. And we also got mangroves in big numbers. And those, along with, well, we don't have the salt marshes, but those along with the small, they're the three entities that sequesters carbon out of the air so fast that is incomparable or uncomparable. But why my daughter Misty, tell me what is the right word. Incomparable or uncomparable, whatever it is. But any other item on earth when it comes to taking carbon out of the air, sequestering it, and storing it. And those are facts. Glenn Bean ain't making that up. You got a call on the line, boss? Okay, good. So, that is where we are when we speak in terms of how much money, based on one research by University of was it Alabama? Michigan, sorry, University of Michigan. They're saying that the Bahamas is poised to make around $156 billion a year based on the ability of the seagrass in the Bahamas sequestering carbon out of the air. And we could talk a little bit more about why that is so important. Because the whole world is depending on that. And the thing about it is we're doing it every second. We don't have to do anything. God bless this country naturally. With all the banks we have, with all those seagrass meadows, to just naturally sequester carbon and store it in the ground underneath those seagrass. So we need to talk about that. We want our money. We're looking for our money. This is not what we think. This is what the studies of the report states. And I have not heard any entity in this country say those studies are faulty, those studies are unrealistic, or those studies are not valid. So until you bring me another study saying something differently, I stick into the study that I know, that was in the papers, that we know is common knowledge. I ain't getting by what some people tell me they think without showing me the study. So ladies and gentlemen, how much money should we realistically anticipate receiving on an annual basis? For how long might the Bahamas be receiving this compensation? How long we could be receiving this $150 billion a year? Well, I tell you one thing. When you see that carbon is sequestered and stored under those seabed meadows on our banks, they're there for hundreds of years. They're there for thousands of years if they're undisturbed. And the good thing about it is, unlike the rainforest that sequesters a lot of carbon out of the environment, right? Not as much as our seagrass, but they sequester a lot when you look at the rest of the world. There's some forest fires. You know this happen when there are forest fires? All that carbon in those trees are released into the environment. So the fact that they were storing that carbon is for naught. Well, Well, mind you, they still got some of the roots, but you know the tree roots are what you use to make coal. When they have those coal mines, they basically old tree root that was sequestered into the ground, and just they're just ready to be charcoal, right? Coal. But our seagrass meadows can't have no fire. Our seagrass meadows are feet below the waterline. You gotta go down there to touch them, to disturb them. And they under the soil, the seagrass. So you gotta deliberately go and disturb them in order for carbon to be released from them, because they are designed to sequester and store carbon underneath them. You see, they're greedy. And let me tell you what I mean by they're greedy. As you know, we got in our country a lot of people that are what you call obese, fat. Okay, we got a call on the line, boy. You're messing up a good thing here, but caller, thank you for calling. Caller, welcome to Maritime Matters, and thank you so much for calling.
I keep you flow going, brother Glenn. This is Jerome, man.
Hey, Jerome. What's happening, Jerome? What's happening, man?
Boy, you inspired me so much to call in tonight as I was listening to you talk.
Yeah, man, it's been a while. I thought you had me. I said, boy, I don't hear from Jerome. I hear from JD for a while. I don't know, but I do my boy. But I so glad you inspired to call, my brother. So what's your thought on this whole thing?
Busy traveling around the world, man. I got to grow up and be like you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Hey, look here. Boy, you got to do some of that, because look here, you're only passing through, you know, Jerome.
Oh, yeah, you may as well enjoy life.
Thank you very much, my friend. So what you saying, man? What you thinking about this carbon credit thing? Because, you know, you're hearing one thing.
With some of this information you share tonight.
Man, I just getting started, Jerome. If you think your mind blown now, you better hold it, because in my voice, because I just getting started, buddy.
But let me help the listening audience, Glenn, to understand a little bit from what you're saying now. I am no scientist, so if I say anything incorrect, and if anybody out there is listening and knows the correct details, please feel free to call in and correct me. But in my studies growing up in particularly when I studied in the United States, and it is carbon monoxide that we human beings breathe out.
No, well, carbon monoxide is what comes from the car exhaust. But we breathe out carbon dioxide.
Or monoxide. That's what I'm trying to do.
Well, we breathe out carbon dioxide, yeah.
But anyway, the point is, the trees, the seagrass, and all of those things that you just referring to, they
inhale,
soak up.
Yeah.
They absorb.
That's correct.
They drink in. They eat up. To
Yeah.
put it in clear terms that people can understand what you mean when you say sequester.
Precisely.
That they suck all of those harmful chemicals out of the atmosphere that is being pumped in the atmosphere by us human beings and our industrial activity on the planet. So, you're saying to me now, Glenn, that based on that study, by the way, what's the name of the study? Where was it published, and how can we, the listening audience, find it?
Yeah, I got it from the Tribune and the Guardian.
Okay, so when was that?
That was like just before the summer started, around June, July this year, yeah.
Okay, now this is why I was inspired to call in, because now you said, if I heard you correctly, that the Bahamas is poised to earn or to generate $150 billion per year?
The study says $154 billion every year.
Oh my Lord! The empirical independent study.
And that's the only study I have seen or I am aware of.
Whoa!
So far. Now I don't know if there were other studies done and they didn't make it public.
Now there must be others, because now.
No, it must be others now. It don't have to be others.
No, they don't have to be, but I dare say they very, very well may be. You see, this is why I called in at this point as you were talking, Glenn.
Yeah.
What you're saying to us.
What the newspaper said to us.
By God's divine providence, He, the Almighty God, who placed us in this position, gave us all these beautiful waters with all the seagrass under the water.
Yep.
You're saying to me, a Bahamian, that God has placed the Bahamas and now us Bahamians in the position to become financially independent as a nation?
You would be so wealthy, to do with your money, JT.
Now, Glenn.
I telling you, it have to happen according to the study. Now, I need to see some other studies, because that's the only study, and that was done by a University of Michigan. He's a scientist.
University of the Bahamas, but a university in the United States, right?
Yeah, but they came here to do it.
No, of course.
And they were not paid. They were not paid by anybody to do it, so they had no incentive.
You see, that even makes it more credible to me. They
Thank you very much.
Paid by the government to do it, but even if they had been paid, the fact is that they would have found out this data, this information in the Bahamas, about the Bahamas.
Yes, sir.
See, Glenn, this brings, and I only want to put a little bit of politics in this.
See, now, I don't do that politics thing, but let's go.
This brings credibility to what a Lincoln Bain and others over the years, Graham Weatherford, have been saying over the years about you and I as Bahamians being able to get from a national sovereign wealth fund $100,000 or even $1 million per citizen per year.
And let me just stop you right there, Jerome. There's a disconnect there. There's a disconnect in that what Graham and Lincoln and them were talking about was Aragonite.
No,
that's what they was talking about. Let's be straight now.
You're right.
Because this carbon credit thing just came around in 2021. Listen good. So let's don't connect the two of them. Let's not connect the two of them.
Concerned about the type of natural resource. But you're making a good point. You're talking about our seagrass.
I'm talking about something that we just found out.
Has been found out by an international university that did an independent study on its own about the potential monetary value of that seagrass to our country.
That is correct. That is correct.
So my point is not so much for the nature, the particular natural resource, but I'm talking about the potential of and for the Bahamas to generate financial wealth. That's the point I'm getting at.
And for years to come. For years to come, my brother.
Pardon?
For years to come.
And see, and let me tell you why it is for years to come. Because as you indicated or alluded to earlier, them grass, as long as we don't dig them up, and we ain't going to dig them up because they got to stay there in order for us to get value from them, that will continue to generate and generate and generate, because it's always going to be there soaking up as long as God keeps this world in the relative order that it's in. This planet is going to continue to do what God designed to do.
That's an act of nature. And the thing is,
the point I'm making.
And the thing, Jerome, is that's not only an act of nature. That is something that, as we speak, is happening, and we're not getting a dime for it.
Right now, exactly.
Well, we need to move on that. Last year, June. Well, was it March or June? Maybe June. Our Prime Minister said that by the end of 2022, we will be receiving over $300 million for our carbon credits.
End of 2022, well.
And that's now we're approaching the end of 2023, and they're saying that yes, we're going to receive hundreds of millions from our carbon credit. Again, but we only got weeks left.
I came across an article in the Guardian last week. I can't remember the title of it.
I can tell you about that one.
Okay, where it was saying that from our carbon credits on the New York Stock Exchange, they're looking at putting the Bahamas' carbon credit market up. I forgot how they put it, but in any event, it's going to be posted on the New York Stock Exchange, and they're projecting that this country can generate anywhere between $500 million to $1 billion a year. Yeah,
well, they're saying $60 billion over the course of now to 2050, but they said anywhere between $500,000 to $2 million a year, I think.
But see, Glenn,
but that's peanuts compared to what we're supposed to be getting.
What you just said in regards to that study, man, that study is blowing that $1 billion out of the water.
Yeah, it's out of place. It's out of place. Now, I don't know from whence they got these new figures, right? Like I said, I only know what I see or what was brought to my attention to the public.
Understood.
So unless I could find something or somebody could point me to something. And I hope somebody call the show and say, oh, well, you know, Glenn, since then, this happened or that happened. Boy, because that's a university and that's another university or one of the authorities in dealing with carbon credits internationally, like the CDC or one of them. I am not, well, that's the BCS, the Verified Carbon Standard. That they have companies worldwide, but it's an American company that actually verify how much carbon your country have, right? And they got to come in to verify it. But we did some things before that. You know, we have this company that came in to do some what you call measuring of seagrass, and they measured it by mapping it out, right? And I understand this company called Beneath the Waves already done that.
Right.
So it's mapped out already, and I'm going to go into some details of what all they did. How they used the sharks and the seabed sensors and research vessel and the hexagon flights.
30%.
Yeah, 30%.
I vaguely remember what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, man, that's where we are, Jerome. And like I said, I got a lot of information to reveal tonight. I am only beginning.
You see, and I'm going to hang up in a minute so you can continue. But see, Glenn, I wanted to help the listening audience by to understand the power of what you're saying, Glenn, because it is only, all Glenn is saying, my fellow Bahamians, is simply this. Again, the seagrass is sucking the poisonous gas out of the atmosphere that cars and trucks and planes pump into the atmosphere. And that seagrass sucking up that is valuable to the whole entire world.
That's right.
And you were saying, because of that, what's the university again, Michigan?
University of Michigan.
The University of Michigan.
You could Google the University of Michigan study carbon credits in the Bahamas, and I'm sure the report will come up.
So you say, and that study has concluded.
Yep.
That the Bahamas has the potential.
No, but the Bahamas should be receiving. We have the potential. Not only the potential, we have enough seagrass meadows and mangroves to receive that amount of money.
That's my point. We haven't received it yet, so we have the potential to get it.
Absolutely.
Right? The potential to get it. But you said now, watch this now, Glenn. Glenn, you didn't say 10 million. You didn't say even 10 billion with a B.
No.
You shared that this study's findings projects that the Bahamas could realize 150, you say?
154 billion.
Billion.
With a B.
With a B.
Yeah, but this is not the first show. This is not the first show I revealed that, but
not for lifetime. You say every year.
Annually, yeah. That's every year.
Yeah, see, and I will conclude on this note. My one concern I have in all of this is that the government of the day be honest and fair to you and I.
But the information is out there, so.
See, I'm glad that it is out there, but my point is, just recently in Parliament they were talking about, within the past year, the Sovereign Wealth Fund versus one other facility that the government is now trying to set up. My thing is, you and I, as Bahamians, we own, watch this now, you and I as citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, heirs and successors of these family of islands, we collectively now own those seagrasses, you know.
Well, my brother.
Glenn?
No, we will always own it because nothing beyond high water mark could be sold to anybody.
But understand,
so we will always own them.
As a citizen of any country.
Yes, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Citizens collectively.
You're absolutely right. I agree with you.
Sovereign ownership.
Yeah.
Of any natural resources in their territorial boundaries. So you and I are literally the owners as citizens of the country now. We own all of the natural resources. So you and I, as a country, are worth billions and billions and billions, and thank God now God has revealed it.
Yep.
Where no one in the country can hide it away from the citizens.
It has to happen.
Well, I will hang up to listen, man. But man, you got me excited when I heard you share that stuff. But I just want the government, please, Mr. Prime Minister. God is a generous God. The devil is a stingy, small g God. God wants you and I, Mr. Prime Minister, you and I as citizens of this country to all share in and benefit from the natural wealth that He, the Almighty God, placed here for us all as citizens. So please, Mr. Prime Minister, do the honorable and right thing always by us, the people, by letting us know and share in that bounty. It belongs to all of us as Bahamian citizens. Thank you, buddy.
Okay, Jerome, and make sure now, don't only call the show, he's gone, don't only call the show, Jerome, when you realize that you could be a millionaire soon. call on some other times. Man, you always call, man. That's my good friend, ladies and gentlemen. Jerome J.T. Thompson. He's a very valid talk show contributor. He contributes very, very well to talk shows in general. From the time talk shows started back in, what year was that, boy? When Love 97 started that talk show, he was, in my view, one of the top 5 talk show contributors in this country, and he really brought talk show to what it is today. A lot of people know his voice. I mean, he's blind, he can't see, but I can tell you, you wouldn't know that he's blind when you hear him calling these talk shows. Not that blind people can't, do things, but he is an amazing contributor to talk show. So thank you, Jerome, for calling, and now I go on. My question was, for how long might the Bahamas be receiving this compensation? And, that's a loaded question, because it depends on how long it takes the world to realize net zero emissions. Or should I say zero carbon emissions? Because what the world is trying to do, you see, if we don't stop the carbon from being emitted into the atmosphere, what already has happened is, since the machine age, since around the early 1900s, when they start to make combustible engines and whatnot, since that time, the world was putting so much carbon into the environment. And as you know, today, especially in the Bahamas, we get far more cars than we ever had. And they're still coming in every day. We got far more planes than we ever had. They're coming in every day. We got far more electricity being burned from, I want to say BEC because it's a little old, but it's BPL now, it's from BPL, right? And every time we stick in a plug, we're using some of that energy. And we have to stick in plugs for all kinds of things. So what the world has done through our behavior, especially in first world countries, we have placed so much carbon in the air that the carbon has now formed a blockage between the earth and the abyss. Well, the abyss is underwater. What is that out there? The environment beyond the earth's surface area, right? So when the carbon used to go up, because of course air rises, it used to go up and it used to go straight out in space, right? Away from us. But what happened is, because we continue to emit so much carbon, the carbon started to get heavy. Because what carbon does is it sucks up, what it sucks up, not water. It sucks up heat, carbon in the air, intakes heat, and they become heavy. And they no longer goes all the way out. And then that carbon sits and it blocks the heat. The sun comes up in the morning, the sun heats up the earth, and in the evening time, when the sun goes down, the heat from the earth is trying to escape and go into space, because that's what always happened. But you know what's going on now? The carbon has formed a blockage. So the heat can no longer escape the Earth's environment. So the heat is trapped. And what happened to the heat that is trapped? It spreads around the Earth's surface. And I ain't no scientist, but that's what I read. So it spreads, and more heat comes every day, and it's trapped, and it's spread, and more heat comes, and it traps, and it's spread. So what it's doing is it causing the ocean to get warmer. It causing the North and South Pole to get warmer, because it spreads all around the Earth's surface, even around the poles. So all the glaciers that used to be there, you can hardly see now, right? Because they're melting away. So what this heat is doing is it's actually causing the entire Earth to get warmer. And according to COP26, I think it was in Paris, when all the countries got together and agreed that they got to put a stop to this and made pledges that they got convert to renewable energy, they're going to convert to electrical cars, and we can talk about a lot of that in a little while. But what happened is, if the Earth gets up to 1.5 degrees centigrade higher on a daily basis, right? If the average temperature of the Earth becomes 1.5 degrees centigrade higher than it normally is, the glaciers, the North and South Pole will melt down and release so much water that the level of the ocean rises. And it could rise to 10 feet, 20 feet. But you know what happens? Countries like the Bahamas are going to be underwater. Right? And a lot of countries will be adversely affected. And we could feel the heat now. It's getting hotter all the time. So this ain't no hoax. And recently, it is being said by the scientists that when they projected that 2050 is the cutting edge for that 1.5 degrees centigrade, they're now realizing it'll happen before that. So the daily heating average is coming up faster than they thought. So we are now in a more desperate mode, Earth-wise, to stop the carbon. Because as carbon continue to get up in there, it continue to take in the heat, it continue to trap, the Earth continue to keep the heat in, and this thing is going to speed up even more. So this is where we are. The world must do something. So when they went to COP26, they all pledged. And part of that pledge was they're going to pay into the World Bank, each country, based on the amount of carbon they emit, so much money. And that so much money amounted to anywhere between, was it $1 trillion and $3.7 trillion. So maybe let's say $2.5–3 trillion. Now you know it's $1 trillion, right? $1 trillion is 1,000 million dollars. Sorry. 1,000 million is a billion. $1 trillion is 1,000 billion. So the World Bank's supposed to get somewhere between 1 trillion, which is 1,000 billion, and 3.7 trillion, which is about 1,000 billion, 2,000, 3,000, but 3,000 billion. Eh? And that is plenty money. And from that, they will give countries like Brazil with their Amazon forests that are sequestering carbon, like the Bahamas with our seagrass meadows that are sequestering carbon, like Australia with all their seagrasses and what the next thing name? Mangroves. They call it mangrove forests, right? And countries that are naturally taking or sequestering carbon out of the atmosphere and storing it long term. will be compensated based on all the countries putting in that money based on how much they're emitting into the atmosphere. And that was agreed in COP26. This ain't something that we got to go and beg them for or say, no, that ain't mean they have to do it, but they already pledged to do it. So this is where we are. And the Bahamas is probably in the best position in the entire world because the size of our banks, the seagrass meadows are on banks. We got the biggest banks in the world, so we got to have the biggest seagrass meadows in the world, eh? That's basically how it happens. It's inversely proportional one to the next. And because we got nice clear water, nice good banks with all kind of fish and seagrass, sequestering all this carbon, and our population being so low, which is less than 500,000, we don't have too much people to share all of the money we can make with. So if our country getting this over $100 billion a year, and look, even if the government makes half of that, even if we, now right now, our revenue is somewhere between 12 and 15 $billion a year. That's what all the money this country make all together before the government pay any bill. It's like somewhere between 12 and 15 billion, eh? So if all the money you just make now is 12 to 15 billion, and you now going to get 100 billion, what are you going to do with that next $85 billion that you never had before? Well, I mean, that'll be the government call. Some people say give the bill. I believe after you done pay all your bill, after you done build all these nice fancy roads and highways in this country, and after we done make this a first world country, and everybody feeling good, the police constable making over $100,000 a year, because we got money to pay them. All government workers could be making plenty of money. The private sector could have to go up because everybody could be able to make plenty of money, right? We could be like those oil-rich countries. Get money for nothing almost. And this has to come, people. I guess based on this only study that I am aware of, this has to come. Is that another caller, producer? No caller. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, feel free to call. 326-8255 is the number if you want in on this discussion. I know a lot of you are there with a lot of information. I know a lot of you are there with a lot of questions. I did quite a bit of research, and I am locked, loaded, and ready. So let's keep rolling. Next question is, how do we protect our valuable blue carbon? So we got, when I say blue carbon, I'm talking about seagrasses, which is number one, because we got so much of it. And of course, we get quite a bit of mangroves as well, eh? So our mangrove forests, which is close to land, the mangrove normally grow near right on the coast of the land, eh? They out in the open sea like the seagrass. The seagrass, they just want to get the banks. Now they can't be in the ocean because the ocean is too deep for them to receive sun. So they have to be anywhere between, like, I think they said in one of the readings I did, anywhere up to 30 meters. And 30 meters is like 90 to 100 feet. So they could be anywhere from 1 foot to up to like 100 foot or 100 feet. Mistake, someone call me and tell me, stop, make sure I get it right. I don't know why my daughters do me like that. But that's what we're talking about, right? So to protect that. Now remember now, that was going on before Columbus even discovered the Bahamas. Because Mother Nature needed a balance, eh? And the balance back then, I remember back then, they didn't have any machinery. Because Columbus boats didn't even have engines, eh? They were sailboats. They only had sail. They had no machinery. So when Columbus came here and met the Indians, of course the Indians, they had no gun. All they had was they make their little spear and bow and arrow and stuff like that to shoot the animals. That's all they had. So while countries like the Bahamas was sequestering and storing the same amount of carbon they store today. Very little carbon was being emitted into the environment. So the balance the Earth had was, of course, humans, all animals, humans, monkeys, elephants, lions, all animals exhale carbon dioxide. And the trees inhaled carbon dioxide and exhaled oxygen so that we could breathe. So it's a combination of carbon dioxide being exhaled by us. Trees use carbon, they store some of it, and they exhale oxygen. We then breathe that in, and we let carbon out again. So it was mainly the animals and the plants. But man made machine, and it became all the animals plus machines. Because what you think those machines use to give them energy to turn? Carbon. There's carbon in oil that's extracted from the ground. So when they have that combustion and they take the valves open to let the oxygen in, and you have that combustion and that impeller, with the thing named the little round, and the piston goes back up, that have to release carbon that was burned before the crankshaft set it back down for another set of combustion and releasing carbon. So those machinery, they use carbon for combustion. The trains back in the day that used coal, you remember anybody saw the Titanic, the big Titanic ship? They were throwing coal in there for combustion so that the engine could keep turning. So that coal is the tree root. After the tree sequestered the carbon and stored it in the root and stored it in the, that's what they make coal from. That's what is coal. Right? So we know that that balance was disturbed as a result of man making machinery to help us with almost everything we do. We can't do without machines, eh? And those machines emitted so much carbon that now the earth is in trouble because Mother Nature balance was disturbed to the extent now where Mother Nature will lash back. You see the kind of hurricanes we having? You see the kind of earthquakes we having? Things are getting abnormal when it comes to acts of nature, or as some people say, acts of God. Because man disturbed the natural balance of air. So now we having this disturbing type lashback. And if man don't do something about it, in 30 and 25 years time, the earth as we know it, many countries will be underwater. Many countries would just be destroyed. So it's not a matter of choice whether the world, meaning the United Nations, and when you talk about the United Nations, you're talking about UNESCO. UNESCO is the United Nations arm that deals with these science type things. So UNESCO is based in Paris. And that's part of the reason why COP26 was in Paris, because there was at UNESCO headquarters making these pledges and saying, this is how we can deal with this, we have to do this, we have to do that. This ain't Glenn Bean idea to say we got to do something. No, this is something that happened. This is something that the world realizes must happen. So what the world gonna do? Come on, man. I got almost an hour gone already. I know it started a little late, Craig, but oh my goodness. What the world gonna do? the world has to now turn it around so that we're not emitting any carbon into the environment. You can't flick a switch and make that happen, eh? So UNESCO say, look, we know that if it ain't done by 2050, the sea level will rise so high that we have all kinds of problems. The hurricane is going to be wild and crazy. So we need to make sure we don't get to that 1.5 degrees centigrade hotter. And the only way we can do that is if we, first of all, cars or vehicles produce like 28%, I think it was in my last reading, about 28% of all the carbon emitted into the environment. So the easy one to go after is cars. That's why you think all these Teslas making all these electric cars now. It ain't by chance that they just want to switch to electric cars. Worldwide, I think it's intended that by 2030, all vehicles that all governments have control over should be battery operated. No more combustion or combustible chamber machinery being putting carbon in there from any government vehicle. And our government, according to the Prime Minister during April of 2022, promised to generate 30% energy from renewable sources by 2030. 7 years. 30% of the energy in this country, and that's BPL is the main one, right, can be from renewable energy. What is renewable energy? We're talking about non-fossil fuels, right? Fuels with far less carbon in it. Like a lot of ships are doing it already. Methanol and natural gas and that type of thing. And we're talking about, especially in our country, solar energy. In a lot of countries, they're putting up wind farms. All of these things are happening now in big numbers so that they can offset their carbon emissions. And they said we got to do the same thing. The Prime Minister said the Bahamas seeks to transition public sector vehicles to a fleet of electric cars by 2030. Well, we don't know who will be the government in 2030 because election will come before that. But it is pledged by our Prime Minister, who represented the country because it was his administration at the time, that's last year, that by 2030, there'll be no red plates that is not electric. So, I don't know if they didn't start buying electrical ones, but I know I saw some on the road, I must say. I believe they already started. Because if you're talking 7 years period, these cars, so 7 years from now, that means government guys sell off all those combustible engine cars. Because that's a pledge made to the world that the Bahamas can do this. And then a third pledge was the Bahamas will retrofit government buildings with renewable energy elements. So all government buildings, I assume, are going to have a big solar panels on the roof. And as much solar energy that can get those buildings going the way they're supposed to go as far as providing energy will be utilized. And once the government start doing it, a lot of us will start doing it too, eh? But let the government start. The Prime Minister already pledged that within 7 years, all these things can be happening. And we got a final question. Who will be responsible for managing our blue carbon credits? Boy, that's a good one. I wouldn't even attempt to answer that right now. Well, first of all, as you know, we have introduced 2 legislation to deal with getting carbon credits from the world. The first one being the Climate Change and Carbon Markets Initiatives Act, just produced last year. Climate Change and Carbon Market Initiative Act 2022, right? And this act provides for accreditation and transformation of blue carbon credits. So this is the act that is going to give us the leeway to prepare to collect on our carbon credits. Then we got the Carbon Credit Trading Act of 2022. So this act enables the Security Commission of the Bahamas to regulate trading of our carbon credits. So we loaded and ready to go. The legislation is already rolled out for us to deal with this carbon credit trading operation, right? And then, of course, we'll come back to talk some more about a company we have called Carbon Management Limited. Because there's a lot of uncertainty in my mind based on everything I read. And I was researching, trying to find some things on that. But again, this is the entity that the government is relying on, along with the international entity beneath the waves, to organize and start getting carbon credits for our country. Because beneath the waves, they had to do all the measuring of the seagrass meadows, the mapping of the seagrass meadows, and all the rest of that good stuff. And they work along with another company, Hexagon, Our Evolution. It's a lot of things on the internet that I pull now. And you know what? We are going to discuss all of those things. But at this point, we're going to move to our first break. I deserve a break, right? And when we return, we're going to delve far deeper into our carbon credits implementation operation. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Maritime Matters. Please, just hang on in there. We'll be back shortly.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for, look like nothing watching the tide roll away.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Maritime Matters. We're in hot discussion tonight. Hot discussion on carbon credit returns. When, how, if, what amount our country is going to get from those seagrass meadows and those mangrove forests that we have all around the coast of our islands and all across our banks. Because according to a study that was published in our country, University of Michigan concluded that the Bahamas is poised to receive over $154 billion annually. Boy, and I holding on to that because I have not seen anybody refuted that to date. I have not seen any other study to offset that to date. And until I do so, why shouldn't I listen to the university? Why should I listen to anybody other than the university? The study that they revealed. They did detailed studies. And this is what they concluded. So let's do some more detailed studies to see if it's 300 billion. Or if it's only 50 billion a year. I don't know. But I know one thing. That 154 billion is where I get start. And until I get something to offset that, that's what I get in with. That's what I go in with. Our sponsors for tonight's show are One-on-One Pharmacy, as you heard during the commercial. Also Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport, which is the sister of One-on-One Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my good little cousin Shantia McBride. Boy, she got it going on with them couple shops, right? And a lovely team. In Nassau, they would be at East Street South and Charles Sanders Highway. In Freeport, of course, they're in Explorers Way, just opposite Scotia Bank, a little cuddy corner sort of thing, almost straight across the road. And that's how they're rolling. You can fill your prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site, oneononepharmacy.com. We are also sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection. Yeah, they call us BMC. We do all the full slate of maritime security services. And thirdly, we're proudly sponsored by GBI pilots and Bimini pilots. These are a contingent of independent marine pilots that are making themselves available to provide maritime pilotage to any and all ships in the Bahamas. It's outside of Freeport proper and Nassau Port area. Eh? Anywhere else, all in private islands, anywhere else where we got any dock and ships need pilotage, check out GBI pilots or Bimini pilots. So please feel free to call on GBI or Bimini pilots for all your marine pilot needs. At this point, let me say good night to my good Annie Mae. Annie Mae, how are you, my dear? You tell me today you're going by Margot for a couple of days, eh? Well, you know how you know you're my girl, so Margot, well, I know I can tell you take good care of Annie Mae. That's your mommy and that's how you all roll. I want y'all to say hello to all them other lovely daughters. You got DeLorean, the fresh, newly retired one, my god sister Vinice, and Yvonne. Say hello to everybody for me. To our listening audience, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the man behind the controls. You hear me call him Craig. I always call on him, you know. Wonderful producer, ladies and gentlemen. I present to you tonight the insatiable, the man of the hour, the man with all the power. He is fully able, quite capable, the one and only Mr. Craig Gibson. Yes, say late, but never too late. You are listening to Maritime Matters, people. On this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters airs weekly at 19:30 every Tuesday here on Love 97. Purpose of our show is to highlight persons that made significant contributions to the maritime in the Bahamas and to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from domestic to international. Halfway through the show, We already reached halfway through the show. We done pass about what time it is now. My goodness, I only got minutes left. You can call us at 326-8255 at any time, people. Feel free, 326-8255. Talking Maritime, you're listening to Maritime Matters. Now, today, I think it was today, we had a vessel capsize. And based on information I got on social media, and I gotta say that because, you know, sometimes the information don't be as accurate as it needs to be. I didn't read it in any press because no press came out as yet since this incident happened. But there's a vessel called the Islander 3. Islander 3. Operate with the Blue Lagoon operation, taking people from Prince George Wharf, Paradise Island, to Blue Lagoon Island and back, and that type of thing. And it's very unfortunate that the Islander 3 took on water and basically sank. I don't know if she's on the bottom or she just sank and sit. But, you know, somewhere on the back of Paradise Island, the water isn't very, very deep because that's not ocean. But, of course, it's deep enough that if you was to be on a vessel that sinks there, you got to be able to swim, or you hold onto the vessel, which most people should do. If a vessel capsizes and it's still out of the water, you hold onto the vessel, you don't go swimming away from the vessel. But anyway, based on reports, I think one person might have lost their life. And question comes to mind. Not only in my mind, I'm sure, but definitely in my mind. Why would this vessel take on water? Is it a maintenance issue? Is it an issue of enforcement? Is it an issue of just simple negligence? Anything could have happened. The propeller could have fallen out and water could have come through the propeller shaft, eh? The rudder could have dropped out. We don't know what really happened. I don't think anybody had an opportunity yet to even properly do a casualty investigation on this matter. They may even have an inquiry if in fact somebody lost their life. And I'm throwing this out there because I kind of know how things go with these type of things. I worked in this area all my life, all my adult life. So my take, not on this specific incident, but on incidents of this sort, is that our authorities in maritime, and that's the Bahamas Maritime Authority and the Port Department, and more so the Maritime Authority when it comes to ensuring that all of these non-soulless vessels in the Bahamas are surveyed annually. Because under the Merchant Shipping Act, there's a section that requires that the Bahamas Maritime Authority ensure that all non-soulless vessels receive a local safety certificate. I talking with my head now. I got none of them things on me, but I know this thing. I know this stuff. The BMA is supposed to ensure that every vessel out there that's operating and is not a solar ship, in other words, not larger than 500 gross tons, if it's a cargo vessel, right? And if it's a passenger vessel, it's carrying more than 12 passengers. So if it's carrying more than 12 passengers, it's okay if they're not doing international voyage. So non-soulless vessels would be vessels that operate only in the Bahamas, no matter how much passengers they carry. Once they operate solely in the Bahamas, they are not an international vessel. So soulless will not apply to that vessel, be it cargo or passenger. So this vessel is a non-soulless vessel, and this vessel should have been issued a local safety certificate based on surveys done by a surveyor that the Bahamas Maritime Authority authorized to be a surveyor for local Bahamian vessels. And I've been preaching this from the time the show started last year, February. I've been preaching that the Bahamas Maritime Authority has fallen down on their responsibility to ensure that non-soulless vessels in the Bahamas are issued local safety. Let me tell you what that means, dear listener, because a lot of people don't understand what that means. So let me break it down, because I know. I worked at the Port Department for 5 years as Deputy Port Controller. I worked at the Bahamas Maritime Authority as a Senior Nautical Inspector, the very first Bahamian Senior Nautical Inspector to do port state inspection in the Bahamas was myself. I took over from the British gentleman Colin Leggett. So I know what I'm talking about. This thing get on me again. You know, my colloquialism is kicking. I ain't no talk show host, and I ain't trying to be none, right? I'm only trying to get information out there. So the local safety certificate for one of those vessels, be it a ferry boat going from Prince George to Paradise Island, because you got deep waters, and if a ferry boat was to tip over and the current is lashing because tide is ebbing or tide is flooding, and they're in the middle, people could die. So what that survey would do before they could get that local safety certificate, it would ensure that the amount of people that vessel can carry is established based on stability tests. It will ensure that that vessel is dry docked on a regular basis, and for vessels that are carrying passengers at least once every 2 years. Okay? Because you got a lot of vessels out there carrying people up and down all day, and they ain't been on dry dock for more than 5 years. And nobody tells them that they got to dry dock this vessel, and you got to do a survey on dry dock stating exactly what happened, that your cutlass bearing was checked, your shaft was pulled, your rudder bearings are still intact. Because if you don't, and something goes wrong like this, because why you need these surveys is because when you get these surveys done, these are verifying that you're good to go for another 2 years. And you get the survey done annually before you could get your local safety certificate. It ensures that you have a captain who is properly licensed to drive and carry passengers on that vessel. These are only some of the things that a survey will ensure. And the survey should be done by a qualified person that the Bahamas Maritime Authority has recognized as capable, and they have given them the authorization to do the survey, and they got to give the BMA the report at the end of the day, and the BMA would then issue the local safety certificate. Or the BMA may even authorize them to issue the local safety certificate and just send them the report. But whatever needs to happen, needs to happen. And this doesn't only cause the vessels to be more safe, right? Because they wouldn't have the luxury to be able to carry people for 3 and 4 and 5 years without dry docking the vessel. They wouldn't have the luxury to not have certain things in place on board that vessel, right? Like radios and firefighting ability and horns and navigational lights if they move in the night, the boat need to be fitted with maybe life jackets if they're on them short voyage. If they're on a long voyage, of course, life raft. But all of these vessels need to be issued a local safety certificate which will verify and certify that the vessel at the time of survey, and that's at least once a year, was up to standard. Is that asking too much? No. And that was the mandate of the Bahamas Maritime Authority now for decades. And it's not being done. And I know, so they can't tell me otherwise. And I'm not saying that to say that had anything to do with the reported incident, because it may not. But at least if we were doing that, we could rule that out, eh? That's my views. Now, we talked last week, and I only can say one statement on this, about the shanty towns. And I gave kudos to Minister Clay Sweeting. And I will continue to give Minister Clay Sweeting kudos for what he done, for what has already been done. Give that shantytown a deadline, went in there, and it's now flattened. You go there and I went there and I looked, just to be sure. Flat. Excellent job. But again, that is one of how many shantytowns. Now what I need to know is what is the next shantytown on the agenda. Now I happen to know that the government knows where every single shantytown in this country is. And then we had the Kai Cares video, I think sometime over the weekend or late last week, that showed nice spanking houses, newly built in Abaco. People don't have no ownership to the property. Government had no hand in dealing with issuing permits, issuing inspection approvals, even reviewing the plan and approving the plan. Is this 2023? Do we have a Ministry of Works in Abaco? Do we have a representative from the Ministry of the Environment in Abaco? Do we have a representative from BPL in Abaco? Do we have a representative from Water and Sewage in Abaco? Because these are the areas that if you or me wants to build a house, we have to get approval from. But their house is going up left, right, and center, looking so nice and spanking. We don't know if they build right, because obviously they ain't getting no authority to build them. But they're going up every day, according to my good friend Kai Mills with his Kai Care videos. Have anything been done as yet to go and address this matter? Is anything being planned to say these shanty towns are on a schedule? Come December, that one gotta go. You finish with that, you give that next one till January. But so if we got 10 shanty towns, we give it 10 months. We bring down one a month. Even in Nassau. What's so hard about that? We know they're breaking all the laws. So why it have to be a problem to have a schedule that the public can see? To say, this is how we're going to address bringing down all of the shanty towns that should not be here. It ain't like you're doing nothing wrong. You're giving them fair notice. And the thing about it is, we make out a schedule and they see the schedule. Then they know, boy, I got 3 more months. Mind you, they can take all 3 now. We know they ain't going to move out before 3 months. But at least they know 3 months ago that this got to come down. So prepare yourself. That's my view. Anybody have a different view, please call in and let me know. Anybody have the same view, call in and let me know. We got 4 more minutes. Okay, 3 minutes now. Boy, I don't know if I can take no more calls. But anyway, we have not touched. Well, we've touched. We've scratched the surface. But I'm telling you, this show will go on. We will do a couple weeks of this carbon credits. And let me tell you why. Because if this country has the capacity or the potential, as my good friend JT said, to make even $20 billion a year. Now, let's come back from the $154 billion. Let's say $20 billion a year, right? That means we'll be out of debts. If we play our cards halfway right, we'll be out of the country wouldn't have no more debt in about 2 years. Plus, all our roads will be nice and smooth. Because you're talking about $20 billion on top of the $12 billion we're making from tourism and stuff. And that's after you put back the amount of money you got to spend to conserve our good old seagrasses. And you ain't got to put much money into conserve seagrasses, you know. You just need a chopper, maybe 2 choppers, 1 or 2 fixed wing plates to make sure nobody really, but you can't really do nothing. They're underwater. The only thing we got to really be concerned about is the fishing boat dropping anchor. But you only can drop anchor on one spot out of over 100,000. Is it 100,000? No, 96,000 square kilometers, which converts to about 37,000 square miles. So if you got 1,000 fishing boats out there, I don't know, we ain't got no whole 1,000 out there at any one time. Hey, let's say we have 200 out there at one time. 200, I'm being modest now. And if all 200 of them drop anchor once a day, or drop anchor every now and then, well, of course, you know they go fishing. When they go to fishing, they go fishing seagrass meadows. Well, on the banks. You fishing on the banks. Yeah, you ain't got an ocean to fishing. You can be on the banks, right? Especially crawfishing and stuff like that. You go a little bit on there to get your group and stuff. But crawfishing, you be on the banks. And if all 200 of them drop anchor on a daily basis, of course they get disturbed, the carbon, and some of it get released and escape into the environment, right? But we could take that, that's like mosquito biting a human, right? No big deal. Because we got 37,000 square miles where the seagrass is found. And when ships drop anchor, they don't normally drop it on grass, no how. Eh? You find a shoal, you find some sand patch, and then we drop our anchor. We don't have to be on the seagrass. So that's how we roll. Okay, since we're running out of time, my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, all I can tell you is next week we can talk about managing our carbon credits. We can go into some details of who the government put in place to manage it, how it is supposed to be managed, how much percentage of the funds based on those heads of agreement our country is going to get, who these people are going to get the rest. All that is to come next week. So with that, all I can say is good night to everybody. My sponsors again: Bahamas Maritime Connection, One-on-One Pharmacy, Allen Care Pharmacy, GBI Pilots, Bimini Pilots. Those are the sponsors for this show, and if you want in on that, feel free to hit us up at Love 97, and we will be happy to have you on board. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Oh, we got one caller. It's a caller, producer. Caller, you on Maritime Matters. Caller, you on Maritime Matters. Hello. Oh, that person hang up. Okay, good. We're fresh out of time. I'm sorry, caller. You caught me at the last second. And my producer ready to go just like me. We had a good show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Remember, Maritime Matters will be back on Tuesday night to finish up our carbon credits program. With that, I say as always, Maritime Matters out.
Look like nothing's going